Now, Pez, India, England. Let's get into the third test. Let's wrap it up.
Right.
Which will take about as long as the match went itself. Lol. Now, I suppose the big conversation, perhaps the only conversation come out of it, is pitch chat. We just want to talk about the pitch.
Pitches ain't shit.
Pitches ain't shit. And that could be the name of the show. And Ashwin has come out in the press conference. He's come out again, which was missed by a lot of people, but he's come out in the press and he's had enough. He's had enough of pitch chat, hasn't he?
Oh, I thought it was fascinating. So should we just play? Let's set up this conversation with this exchange. So it runs for a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, and it's an exchange, but yeah, between an English journalist and Ravichandran Ashwin about the pitch. I think it's very, very interesting in terms of Pax Britannica v Asian Century.
Hi, yes. I was wondering again about the pitch. Do you think it was a good pitch for Test cricket, third Test, and do you expect or do you hope for a similar surface for the next Test match?
I have a question back. What is a good cricket surface? Who defines it?
Yeah.
Who defines it?
I'm asking the question, but I would think.
No, because I think the question is asked with a
contest between bat and ball.
no. Yes, of course. The bowler was in the game. The batsman needs to bat well to get runs. There is absolutely no question about it. What makes a good surface? Who defines this? Seam on the first day, then bat well, and then spin on the last 2 days? Come on. Who makes all these rules? We need to get over it and not talk about whatever picture we want to paint. And if you're asking whether it's a good test surface, I don't see any of the players coming in from England having an issue with the surface. They want to improve. They look like they want to have a contest. Is it the players and the people who are reporting back that want their players to not compete and complain about the pitches? Because we've never done that in any of the tours.
Yes. And in that case, are you hoping for a similar surface in the next Test match?
It depends on what you're hoping for. We hope for a good cricket match.
Now, team, I think most people would hope for a good cricket match.
Of course, that's what you should be hoping for, not about the surface.
See, that's Lords versus Mumbai. That's 1877. That's W.G. Grace versus the Asian Century, right? In that exchange, as far as I can see, he goes now.
Yes.
Ashwin is merely sort of repeating or consolidating what we've been suggesting, which is the entire concept of what a good pitch is now up for debate, particularly with the power of India. Now you've got Michael Vaughan on the other side in England, writing articles with headlines. He doesn't write the headline, but say, India's power allowing them to turn Test cricket into a freak show. Memes abound from Vaughan and David Lloyd, of tractors going over soil and stuff. Or is this going to be It's a big conversation about what's a good pitch. Who defines what good cricket is these days? Is it turning into a freak show? He goes. Is it turning into TikTok? Or was Herodotus right? The Greek historian talking about the Peloponnesian Wars. Might is right. If India says that's a good pitch, then that's a fucking good pitch.
Well,
Play on.
One thing I did like, Pez, was that Kohli came out and said the pitch was very good.
Well,
was it, Marat? Now, the idea that people get bowled out in England or other parts of the world for 50, 60, 47, whatever. I mean, that does happen, but that's because of the pitch. That isn't right. That doesn't ring true to me. I mean, you get swung out in England. Yes, it does seem. It's subtle though. I mean, it doesn't start outside leg and then go over third slip's head. It's a subtle thing. You get swung out more, and unless we can control the climate change to such a degree where we can alter the barometric pressure in Manchester at 2:15 on a Wednesday,
which we might be able to do. Hopefully,
right. Yeah, exactly. The ball's always going to move in the air, right? And there's nothing like manufactured around that. You understand what I mean? Like, it's more like the environment, I suppose, that controls that movement and the.
They manufacture pitches to get that kind of behaviour, though.
In terms of what, leaving heaps of grass on it?
Yeah.
I think to a lesser degree. Now, what is manufactured, though, is like these wickets. I think the wickets in India. Now, I have to say that, but that's also okay. What's happening in India is also okay, I think. It's not India's fault that England picked 3 seamers in this third test in Ahmedabad, possibly the worst selection of all time, of course, aside from Will Smith choosing to do Wild Wild West over The Matrix.
Of course.
I keep saying that. Now, it's not India's fault that England seemingly don't have many good plays of spin on this tour. You can't throw your hands up in the air and say like, this is cheating, which I kind of feel like England just like gave up after about an hour and a half in like the last 2 test matches. They're like, well, we can't win on this. That's not India's fault. I think at the same time, India almost like to counterbalance that as saying like, this wicket's actually the best thing I've ever seen. This is actually, neither of those things are true. Yet I agree with what Mark Butcher said last week. There seems to be this thing where like you can't have an honest conversation. It has to be absolutely binary. This pitch is a disgrace.
100%.
Or it's, no, you guys are fucked and, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I think these wickets are going to keep getting rolled out in India for as long as touring teams aren't adapting to what's going to happen.
Exactly.
I keep going back to England picking Broad, Anderson, Archer. What the fuck were they thinking? That's been completely swept to one side. There's so much talk about the pitch. Stokes has hardly bowled in this series. What's going on there? Joe Root taking 5 for 8. I mean, that's what's Dom Best doing? What's another spinner in the UK doing? Mason Crane's on the tour. Parkinson's, I'm pretty sure he's on that tour as well. So as long as these wickets, Anglo-Western centric 11s keep getting rolled out on these pitches, which we know are going to happen. We know they're going to do this. Then this will just keep happening. These wickets are a lottery. They are a lottery, but they're a lottery when the teams are evenly matched. And India know that they're not evenly matched. And also, India isn't Sri Lanka. The UAE isn't Pakistan. Pakistan isn't the West Indies. So people are saying like, well, it's spun in Sri Lanka. Yeah, but Sri Lanka and India, it's a different place. I checked.
Nathan Lyon made
Thoughts?
some comments.
Yeah, he did.
Have you seen this?
I did.
As soon as it starts spinning, everyone in the world seems to start crying about it. I don't get it. I'm all for it. It was entertaining. England went in with 4 seamers. That'll do me. It is interesting. I do think that that this situation is like should cause people to step back and think, what are the conventions that we hold dear in cricket, the sacred cows that we go, we don't touch that, and this is kind of weird. And I do think that it's worth considering what Ravichandran Ashwin is saying. And the key thing he said in that press conference to me was, who makes all these rules? Mm-hmm. Because I do think there are some unquestioned kind of conventions that are dictating our notion of what is weird and what isn't. And I think Nathan Lyon is kind of backing that up. He's like, why is it weird for a ball to spin in an extreme way, in a way that gets people's goat,
nice.
but not so much with seam and swing? It's just a question. I've been thinking about the term lottery because I was saying a lot on our daily shows as well. It was a lottery pitch. Like, I'm not so sure anymore whether that it's a bit of a dangerous word, lottery. It kind of reminds me of like the term political correctness a little bit. It's kind of weaponized to suppress the idea of actually just being nice to people or considerate of people, politically correct. And I think the lottery pitch is being like used to suppress spinners a little bit. Like it's not a lottery, it's skill. I mean, some players have got better skill in dealing with those misbehaving balls, those asymmetrically behaving balls than others. And that's what Ashton's saying. There is skill involved.
Absolutely.
Indians have better skill. I still maintain that them beating us at the Gabba was the scariest thing because we've always been able to say when they dust us over there what Tim Payne said. That's why it was such a famous comment because we couldn't do it anymore. The Gabba was the antithesis of the Indian wicket, and now they've dusted us there. There's almost nowhere to go. And I agree with the last thing you say. Well, fuck. The last post. It is. New Zealand's our last hope.
Yeah. I've always said
and
that.
then they're going to play it. They're going to play at Lords, but
that's right.
or wherever, or the Rose Bowl, or the fucking COVID stuff. And so the last bit, I think you're right about the last bit. It's might is right. Peloponnesian Wars. Herodotus, might is right. Like, some of our AFL athletes now need to become Axar Patel.
Yeah, that's right.
Mitchell Stark, the next generation of Mitchell Stark is left arm orthodox now. It's a time for the spin revolution.
We've kind of hypothesized about who you take over there. And I think there's, as in for touring teams, and I feel like Australia are a little bit further ahead than what England are. Now, England have got in the middle of, like, they're playing 85 tests this year. They probably won't work. This will all be forgotten a little bit when they dust. Well, they hope to beat India at home. They've got an Ashes year, etc., etc. So there's that. But I feel like Australia are a little bit closer because when we went there a few years ago, rather, Moses played really well. Steve O'Keefe played. I think we've tried a little bit horses for courses still. Now, like, you know, Pez, that I am a huge Ollie Pope guy. I love Ollie Pope. He ain't scoring shit on these wickets. It's a waste of time him playing. He cannot play there. Ben Stokes is one of the best players in the world. He's completely nullified in these conditions, I think. I understand that, like, to reach the pinnacle of the game that is Test cricket, you have to prove yourself that you can compete at that level, and that's fine. So there's probably a very few amount of guys in county cricket or shield cricket who can actually compete at the very top level, but compete at the top level in what conditions? Yeah. I think that's the thing. It's just like, you might think, I suggested as a bit of a dark horse that, like, a guy like Samit Patel in this England squad may actually be much more effective than someone like, I don't know, another name in the England squad, right, who might be playing. Ben Folkes would be considered a much lesser player than Joss Butler, for instance, but he seems to be a much better player of spin. Is there potential of him batting 3? Because Bairstow ain't scoring shit over there either. You know, that, like, you've got guys in your setup who might not score buckets of runs playing at home against Sri Lanka, but there are guys who will do much better, which is hard to grin and take, who will succeed in different conditions, like in India, which is a completely foreign environment to us. So, like, until people you can't pick the same team. You can't think, oh, Mitchell Starc will hoop it in Mumbai. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the sooner we get used to that, the better. It'd be really interesting to see the deck that they roll out for the 4th test. Because from what Coley's saying, what Ashwin's saying, there's definitely a company line to it, which is a little bit grating.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a company line of, like, don't know what you're talking about.
Dada's in the ear, don't worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that reveals that there's a power shift going on.
Dada's in the ear, don't worry about that.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Big data. So yeah, there's a company line going on, but I'm not sure what kind of power. I mean, Vaughan and David Lloyd and that mob, they're howling at the moon at it. I mean, the horse is bolted. It's the time for spin. We've just got to create some spinners. And why can't Australia's team next time going over the B, guys like Maxwell, Hanscom, Kawaja? I'm just thinking about people who can play spin well. Exactly. Why not? It's just sacred cows you got to get rid of.
Yeah.
A lot of animal references.
A lot of animal references.